The day we buried my father, my family buried me too. I stood beside his coffin in the main hall of Vale Mansion while rain hit the glass roof above. Me, my father, Edward Vale, had once seemed too strong to die. Now he was locked inside a wooden box, and every person around him was staring at me like I was the next problem to solve. I'm sorry for your loss, Lucas. Your father was a great man. You must be strong now. I nodded, but inside I was breaking. Strong? The only person who ever made me feel safe was gone. My father used to tell me a man can bleed inside, but he must not hand his enemies a knife. I never understood that line. That day I did. My uncle Victor stood near the coffin with one hand on his heart. His face looked sad, but his eyes kept moving around the room, counting guests and watching the lawyers near the back wall. He was not grieving, he was waiting. My stepmother, Helena, sat in the front row with a black veil over her face. She pressed a handkerchief to her eyes, but no tear touched her cheek. My fiancée, Emily Carter, stood beside me. Her fingers were wrapped around mine, but her hand felt cold. I whispered, "I don't know how to do this without him." She did not look at me. "You'll survive," she said. "Not we, you." Something cracked in my chest, but I ignored it. Maybe grief made people strange. Then Victor stepped forward. The room became quiet. "My brother Edward built this family, this company, and this home," Victor said. Before he passed, he made decisions about the future. My head lifted. Future, this was my father's funeral. Why was he talking about business? A grey-haired man in a dark suit stepped beside him. I knew him as Mr. Reddick, one of Victor's lawyers, not my father's real lawyer. Victor looked at me with soft, fake sadness. "Lucas," he said, "I wish this could wait, but your father wanted clarity." My stomach tightened. "What are you talking about?" Emily's hand slipped out of mine. I turned to her. "Emily?" She stared at the floor. Mr. Reddick opened a folder. "According to the final will of Edward James Vale," he said, "control of Vale Holdings, all family properties, and the main estate will pass to Victor Vale." For a second I heard nothing. Then I laughed once, because the words were too stupid to be real. "No," I said. "Read it again." Mr. Reddick did not blink. Mr. Edward Vale also stated that his son, Lucas Vale, was not mentally or emotionally ready to manage the family fortune.
A few people gasped. My face burned. I looked at Victor.
"Lucas," he said softly, "don't make this ugly." "Ugly?" I stepped toward him. "My father is in that coffin, and you're stealing from him before the flowers are even dead." Helena stood slowly. "Enough. This is exactly what Edward feared." I turned to her. "What?" She looked around the room like she was on a stage. "Your anger, your instability, your need to attack anyone who tells you no." My chest tightened. "You know that's not true," Victor sighed. "Your father loved you, Lucas, but love does not mean trust." Those words hit harder than a punch. I looked at Emily, desperate for one familiar face. "Tell them," I said. "Tell them father would never do this." For 1 second, I thought she would defend me. Then she whispered, "Lucas, please don't make this harder." The hall went silent. Her eyes were wet, but not with love, with fear. "I'm sorry," she said. "Maybe your father saw things you couldn't." My body went cold from the inside out. Victor placed his hand on my shoulder. "You should rest. This has been a hard day." I shoved his hand away. "Do not touch me." 2 security men near the side doors stepped closer. I looked at them. "Are those my father's guards?" Victor smiled. "Not anymore." That was when I understood. This was not a mistake. This was a trap. They had waited until I was weak, until the house was full of witnesses, until my father could no longer speak, and Emily knew. I looked at Victor, Helena, and Emily, and something inside me went silent, not dead, changed. "You all planned this," I said. Victor leaned close enough that only I could hear him. "You have nothing, Lucas. No house, no company, no money, no proof. Even your woman knows you're finished." I looked past him at Emily. She looked away. That hurt more than losing the mansion. Victor spoke louder. "Escort him out." The guards grabbed my arms. "Let go of me," I shouted. Emily covered her mouth, but she did not move. Helena said, "This is painful for all of us." I laughed through my teeth. "Then why do you look so comfortable?" Victor's mask cracked. "Get him out." They dragged me past my father's coffin. I fought to stop, just for one last second near him. "Dad," I whispered, "I'm sorry." As they forced me toward the door, I saw our old housekeeper, Mrs. Bell. She was crying for real. Her hand shook as she slipped something into my coat pocket. Victor did not see it. The front doors opened. Cold rain hit my face. The guards threw me outside like I was a stranger who had broken into my own home. Behind me, the mansion doors closed. For a moment, I stayed there on my knees, soaked, shaking, and empty. Then I reached into my pocket. There was a small sealed envelope. My name was written on it in my father's handwriting, Lucas. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was one sentence: "When they take everything, go to Marcus Hale." I stopped breathing. Then, for the first time that day, I smiled because my father had known. I read my father's note 3 times in the rain. "When they take everything, go to Marcus Hale." The words were short, but they hit me harder than any scream. My father had known. He had known they would turn on me. He had known Victor would steal. He had known Helena would smile through fake tears. Maybe he had even known Emily would let go of my hand. That thought almost broke me. I looked back at the mansion. Warm golden light filled the windows. Inside, people were still drinking, whispering, and pretending they had not watched a son get thrown out beside his father's coffin. I stood and walked back to the gates. One guard stepped in front of me. "You need to leave, Mr. Vale," I laughed. "Mr. Vale, you still call me that after throwing me in the dirt?" He looked away. "Orders from my uncle." He said nothing. I grabbed the iron gate. "That is my father inside. Let me say goodbye." The guard's jaw tightened. "I'm sorry." Before I could answer, the front doors opened again. Victor walked out under a black umbrella. Helena stood behind him, dry and calm, like the rain was not allowed to touch her. Emily came last. She held her arms around herself, but she did not look sad. She looked nervous. Victor tossed a small leather bag through the gate. It landed at my feet. "What is this?" I asked. "Your things," he said. I opened it. 2 shirts, an old pair of shoes, a cracked phone charger. Not my father's watch, not my documents. Not even the photo of me and my father from my college graduation. "You packed my life into a bag?" I said. Victor smiled. "No, Lucas. I packed what belongs to you." My hands curled into fists. Helena stepped forward. "Be grateful. Victor wanted you removed with nothing." I looked at Emily. "And you? Did you help pack it?" Her lips parted. "Lucas, please." "Please what?" I asked. "Please stay quiet. Please disappear. Please make it easy for you to sleep tonight." She looked down. "I did what I had to do." I stepped closer to the gate. "No, you did what paid better." Her face changed like I had slapped her. Victor's smile faded. "Watch your mouth." I stared at him through the bars. "You needed guards, lawyers, lies, and a funeral to beat me. That means you were afraid of me before I even knew there was a war." For the first time, Victor's eyes darkened. Then he leaned close. "You are nothing without your father." The words cut deep because part of me feared they were true. Victor turned away, but Emily stayed. Her eyes finally met mine. "I loved you once," she whispered. I shook my head. "No, you loved the door my name opened," she cried then. "One tear, maybe real, maybe not. I hated that I still cared." Helena pulled her back. "Do not waste tears on a man who cannot protect you." The doors closed again. The gate stayed locked and I was outside. I picked up the leather bag and walked away from the only home I had ever known. The rain soaked through my suit. My shoes filled with water. Every step felt heavier than the last. I did not know where Marcus Hale was. I did not know if he was alive, loyal, or just another trap. But my father had written his name. And that was all I had left. My phone buzzed. For one foolish second, I thought Emily had changed her mind. But the message was from an unknown number. "Stop looking for answers. Leave the city tonight." I froze under a streetlight. Another message came. "Your father should have taught you when to stay dead." My throat went dry. Someone was watching me. I turned, but the street was empty except for rain and parked cars. Then a black SUV slowly rolled past me. The window was too dark to see inside. My heart started pounding. I walked faster. The SUV turned at the corner and came around again. I ducked into a narrow side street beside the old chapel. My wet shoes slipped on the stones. I held the leather bag tight and kept one hand around my father's ring. "Think, Lucas," I whispered. "Don't panic, think." My father's voice came back to me. "A man can bleed inside, but he must not hand his enemies a knife." I forced myself to breathe. At the end of the alley, I saw an old payphone under a broken awning. I ran to it and searched at my father's envelope again. There was another piece of paper folded behind the note. I had missed it. A phone number. My fingers shook as I dialed. The line rang once, twice. Then a deep voice answered. "Who is this?" I swallowed hard. "My name is Lucas Vale." Silence. Rain tapped against the glass, then the voice changed. "Where are you?" "Near St. Mark's Chapel," I said. "I think someone is following me." The man did not sound surprised. "Stay where there is light," he said. "Do not go home. Do not call the police. Do not trust anyone from that mansion." My chest tightened. "Are you Marcus Hale?" Another pause. "Yes," he said. "And your father told me this night would come." Before I could speak, headlights filled the alley behind me. The black SUV stopped at the entrance. 2 men stepped out. The phone almost slipped from my hand. Marcus's voice turned sharp. "Lucas, listen carefully." I looked at the men walking toward me. Then Marcus said one word. "Run." I ran before I even understood why. The 2 men from the black SUV stepped into the alley behind me, their shoes splashing through the rain. One of them shouted, "Lucas, stop running." That made me run faster. No normal person chased a grieving son through an alley after midnight. No normal person sent messages telling him to stay dead. I held the phone tight against my ear. "Marcus," I gasped. "They're behind me." "Left at the end of the alley," Marcus said. His voice was calm, like he had done this 1,000 times. "Then cross the street. Don't stop for cars. My men are close." "Your men?" Move, Lucas. I burst out of the alley and nearly slipped on the sidewalk. A horn screamed as I ran across the street. Bright headlights blinded me. For one terrible second, I thought the SUV had caught me. Then a black sedan stopped in front of me. The back door opened. A man in a dark suit stepped out. He was huge, with a scar near his jaw and eyes that did not blink. Lucas Vale, I stepped back. Who are you, Daniel Cross? Marcus sent me. The men chasing me came out of the alley. Daniel looked past me and said, "Get in." I did not have time to question him. I jumped into the car, and Daniel slammed the door. The sedan pulled away so fast, my shoulder hit the seat. I looked through the back window. The two men stopped in the rain, watching us disappear. My chest was burning. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold my father's note. The driver did not speak. Daniel sat beside me, still as stone. I looked at him. Were those Victor's men? Maybe, he said. Maybe? Daniel's face stayed empty. Your uncle uses people who are hard to trace. My blood went cold. So this was planned. Daniel finally looked at me. Sir, your father believed it was only a matter of time, sir. Nobody had called me that before. Not like that, not with respect. I looked down at my soaked suit and muddy shoes. Don't call me sir. I just got thrown out of my own house. Daniel's voice did not change. That does not change who you are. For some reason, those words almost made me cry. The car drove through downtown until it stopped behind an old law building. The windows were dark, but a single light glowed on the third floor. Daniel led me inside through a back entrance. No signs, no cameras I could see. No one at the front desk. We took an elevator up. When the doors opened, Marcus Hale was waiting. He was older than I expected. Maybe in his early 50s. Tall, broad shoulders, grey at his temples. His face looked hard, but his eyes softened when he saw me. You look like your father, he said. I tried to answer, but my throat closed. Marcus stepped closer.
Edward was my friend.
That one sentence broke through the wall I was trying to hold up. I looked away fast, but he noticed. I'm sorry, Lucas, he said. He deserved better than what happened tonight, I whispered. He's dead, Marcus. And they stole everything. Marcus shook his head. No, they stole what he wanted them to think they could take. I looked at him. He opened a door behind him. Come inside. The room looked like a private command center. Screens covered one wall. Files sat on a long table. A map of the Vale estate was pinned near the back, and sitting beside the table was a woman in a navy suit. She stood when I entered. Lucas, she said gently. I'm Clara Bennett, your father's real attorney. I stared at her. Real attorney? She gave me a sad smile. Mr. Reddick never represented your father. He represented your uncle. My stomach twisted. So the will? Fake, Clara said. The word was simple, but it changed the air in the room. Fake. My knees almost gave out. I gripped the table. Then why did nobody stop them? Marcus answered. Because Victor moved the moment your father died. He planned the reading during the funeral for a reason. Public pressure. Emotional shock. Witness control. I looked at Clara. Can we call the police? Not yet, she said. I frowned. Not yet? They threw me out. They chased me. They stole my father's house. And if we move too soon, Clara said, Victor will destroy evidence, hide money, and paint you as unstable. That is the story he already started. I hated that she was right. Emily's voice came back to me. Maybe your father saw things you couldn't. I clenched my jaw. She helped him. Marcus looked at me carefully. Emily? I nodded. For a moment nobody spoke. That silence hurt worse than any answer. Clara opened a black file and slid it toward me. Your father left instructions. Inside was a sealed letter with my name on it. Same handwriting, same strong lines. My hands trembled as I opened it. My son, if you are reading this, then I was right about the people around us. I am sorry. A father should not leave his child a war. But I would rather leave you a sword than leave you helpless. My eyes burned. I kept reading. Victor wanted my chair for years. Helena wanted security more than love. And Emily? I hoped I was wrong about her. If I was not, forgive me for letting her close enough to hurt you. I pressed my fist against my mouth. My father had known about Emily too. Clara placed another document in front of me. Your father created the Vale Protection Trust 3 years ago, she said. It names you as the final controlling beneficiary. I looked up slowly. What does that mean? Marcus answered this time. It means Victor controls nothing permanently. Not the company, not the mansion, not the private security contract, not once fraud is proven, Clara added. And your father gave you emergency authority over the estate if someone tried to seize it through illegal documents. I stared at them both. For the first time all night, my heartbeat slowed. So I can take it back, Marcus leaned forward. You can take all of it back. The room became quiet. My grief was still there. My father was still gone. Emily had still betrayed me. The mansion gates had still closed behind me, but something inside me shifted. I was no longer standing outside in the rain. I was standing inside my father's final plan. Clara tapped the file. But we need proof, real proof, bank transfers, medical records, messages. Witnesses. Marcus looked at the estate map on the wall. And we need timing. I wiped my face with my sleeve. How long? Long enough for them to feel safe, Marcus said. I looked at him. And then, his eyes turned cold. Then we walked through the front gates with court orders, private guards, and the truth. I looked down at my father's ring. All night, I had felt like a beggar. Now I felt like a son with unfinished business. I folded my father's letter and held it against my chest. Victor had taken my home. Helena had taken my father's memory. Emily had taken my heart and sold it for a seat beside power. But they had made one mistake. They thought I had been buried with my father. I looked at Marcus and said, "Tell me what to do." Marcus gave one sharp nod. "First," he said, "you stop crying where enemies can see you." I swallowed the pain. "And second?" Marcus walked to the window and looked out at the city. "Second," he said, "you let them celebrate." I stared at him, confused. He turned back to me. "Because greedy people always expose themselves when they think they already won." For the next 10 days, I became a ghost. I did not go back to the mansion. I did not call Emily. I did not answer unknown numbers. I stayed in a small apartment Marcus owned above a closed bookstore, with locked windows, black curtains, and 2 guards outside the door every night. It felt like hiding. But Marcus called it preparation.
"You are not running,"
he told me on the first morning.
"You are waiting."
I sat at the kitchen table in my borrowed clothes, staring at my father's ring. "Waiting feels weak," I said. Marcus placed a file in front of me. "Rushing feels strong. That is why fools do it." My father would have acted. "No," Marcus said. "Your father would have watched first." That hurt because I knew he was right. My father was not loud when he was angry. He was quiet. That was what made people afraid of him. So I learned to be quiet too. Clara came every day with new documents, medical records, bank alerts, old company emails, security logs from the mansion. Every piece was small, but together they started forming a knife. The will was signed at 9:20 p. Clara said one afternoon. I leaned forward. "Okay, at that exact time your father was in the hospital under strong medication. He could not legally sign anything." My throat tightened. "So that proves it." "It helps," Clara said, "but I want more." Marcus crossed his arms. "Victor say Edward signed before the medicine took effect." I slammed my hand on the table. "Then he lies again." Clara did not flinch. "Yes, and judges need proof, not anger." I hated those words, not because they were wrong, because they forced me to stay calm when every part of me wanted to break Victor's face. That night, Daniel showed me live security footage from outside Vale Mansion. I stood behind him as the screen showed cars pulling through my father's gates. Luxury cars, black SUVs, guests in expensive suits. I frowned. "What is this?" Daniel zoomed in on a banner near the entrance. "Vale Holdings Future Investors Dinner." My stomach turned. "He is holding a party?" I asked. Marcus stood behind me. "Not a party, a victory lap." On the screen, Victor stepped out of the mansion wearing my father's navy suit. My father's suit. I stopped breathing. "That belongs to my dad," I whispered. Marcus's face hardened. "I know." Then Helena came outside with a diamond necklace around her throat. I knew that necklace. It had belonged to my mother, my real mother. She died when I was 12. My father kept her jewelry locked in a private safe. He once told me, "One day, if you marry someone worthy, this will belong to your wife." Helena touched the necklace like it was a toy. My vision blurred. "No," I said. "No, she does not get to wear that." I moved toward the door, but Marcus grabbed my arm. "Lucas, let go." "No," I turned on him. "She is wearing my mother's necklace. And if you go there tonight," Marcus said, "Victor wins." I shoved his hand away but did not leave. My whole body shook. On the screen, Emily appeared beside Victor. She wore a silver dress I had bought her for our engagement dinner. She smiled at the guests. She laughed. She looked happy. That was the moment I realized heartbreak could become something colder than sadness. I whispered, "She really chose them." Daniel looked away. Marcus said nothing. Clara's voice came softly from behind me. "Lucas." I found something else. I turned. She held a printed document. "What?" "A private agreement between Emily and Victor." I took the paper with numb fingers. The words were clear. Emily Carter would receive a 5% share in a private holding company after helping confirm that I was emotionally unstable and unfit to inherit. I read it once. Then again, then a third time, because my heart refused to understand what my eyes already knew. "She signed this?" I asked. Clara's face was full of pity. "Yes." "When?" Clara hesitated. I looked at her. "When?" 2 weeks before your father died." The room went silent. 2 weeks. Emily had kissed me 2 weeks ago. She had slept beside me 2 weeks ago. She had held my hand in the hospital and said, "We'll get through this." We. There was never a we. I folded the paper slowly. Marcus watched me. "Lucas," I laughed, but it sounded broken. I was not betrayed at the funeral. Nobody spoke. I looked at the screen again, where Emily was smiling under my father's roof. I was betrayed while I was still loving her. That night, I did not sleep. I sat near the window with my father's letter in my lap and Emily's agreement on the table. My phone buzzed just after midnight. This time it was her, Emily. "Lucas, please stop fighting this. You're only hurting yourself." I stared at the message. Then another came. "Emily, Victor is willing to give you money if you leave quietly. You can start over somewhere else." My hands turned cold. I typed back, "Me. How much was I worth to you?" She did not reply for 2 minutes. Then, "Emily, don't do this." I almost threw the phone. Instead, I typed, "Me. You already did." The reply came fast. "Emily, I was scared. You don't understand what it feels like to have nothing." I stared at the small apartment around me, the borrowed clothes, the locked door, the guards, the life I had not chosen. Then I wrote, "Me. You made me homeless at my father's funeral. Don't talk to me about having nothing." No answer. But I knew she read it. The next morning, Clara arrived with the first real smile I had seen on her face. "We got it," she said. I stood. "Got what?" "The hospital nurse who witnessed your father's real final statement. She says Edward was awake one day before his death. He said Victor was not to be trusted." My pulse jumped. Clara placed a recorder on the table. "She recorded it because your father asked her to." Marcus looked at me. My heart pounded as Clara pressed play. Static filled the room. Then my father's weak voice came through. "If anything happens to me, protect my son. Victor will move fast. Helena will help him. And Lucas." The recording cracked. I stepped closer. My father breathed hard. "Lucas must trust the will they show him." My legs went weak. I grabbed the table. My father had not just suspected it. He had warned us. Clara stopped the recording. "This gives us emergency grounds," she said. "With the fake will, the medical timeline, Emily's agreement and the nurse's statement, we can petition for estate seizure." I looked at Marcus. "When?" He walked to the map of the mansion and pointed at the Great Hall. "Victor is hosting a larger investor event in 3 nights, he said. "He plans to announce the sale of part of Vale Holdings." I frowned. "Can he do that?" Clara's smile turned sharp. "Not after the court order lands." Marcus looked at me. "That room will be full. Investors, guests, cameras, everyone he wanted to impress." My chest tightened. "And we walk in?" Marcus nodded. "Through the front doors." I looked down at my father's ring. For 10 days, Victor had slept in my father's room. Helena had worn my mother's necklace. Emily had smiled under my roof. They thought my silence meant defeat, but silence had been the sound of proof gathering around them. I looked at Marcus and Clara. "Get the order," I said. Marcus gave one firm nod. "And the guards?" I asked. His eyes went cold. 12 in 6 outside, every exit covered. For the first time, I did not feel like the boy they threw into the rain. I felt like the storm coming back. 3 nights later, I sat in the back of a black armored car and stared at the gates of Vale Mansion. For most of my life, those gates had opened for me before I even reached them. Now 12 private guards stood behind my car, waiting for my order. The rain had stopped, but the ground still looked wet under the lights. It reminded me of the night they threw me out. The night I stood outside this same mansion with mud on my shoes, my father's note in my hand, and nothing left except pain. Marcus sat beside me. He looked calm. I did not. My hands were cold. My jaw was tight. My heart felt like it was trying to break out of my chest. Marcus noticed. "You do not have to enjoy this," he said. I looked at him. I thought revenge would feel better. "It does not," he said. "Justice feels heavy when it is built on someone you loved." I looked at the mansion windows. Music played inside. Guests laughed. Cars lined the driveway. Victor had invited investors, politicians, lawyers, and old family friends. He wanted everyone to watch him rise. Instead, they were going to watch him fall. Daniel stepped up to the car window. "All teams ready, sir, sir." That word still felt strange. I took a slow breath and touched my father's ring. "Open the gates," I said. Daniel gave one signal. The guards moved at once. The front gate guard tried to stop them. "Hey, you can't." Daniel showed him the court order. The man's face changed. He stepped back. The gates opened, and for the first time since my father's funeral, I came home. The car rolled up the long driveway. Every step of the plan was clean, quiet, legal. That made it even more terrifying. No shouting, no guns raised, no chaos, just power. Real power, the kind Victor had pretended to have. When the car stopped near the front steps, Marcus turned to me. "Remember," he said, "do not scream. Do not beg. Do not explain yourself to people who already chose their side." I nodded. Then I stepped out. The cold air hit my face. For 1 second, I saw my younger self running across the front lawn while my father stood near the door, laughing. Then the memory vanished. The front doors opened. 2 of Victor's guards stood there. One of them recognized me and froze. "Mr. Lucas," I looked at. "Move." He looked behind me and saw Marcus, Daniel, and the line of private guards walking up the steps. He moved. Inside, the mansion was glowing. Crystal lights, white flowers, golden trays, expensive suits, fake smiles, and at the center of the great hall stood Victor. He was holding a glass of champagne and speaking to the crowd. "My brother built this empire," he said. But tonight I promised to take Vale Holdings into a stronger future. People clapped. Then they saw me. The clapping died piece by piece. Victor turned slowly. His smile fell. For a moment the whole room forgot how to breathe. Helena stood near the fireplace, wearing my mother's necklace again. Her face went pale. Emily was beside her in a dark green dress. The moment her eyes met mine, a glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the marble floor. That sound echoed through the hall like a gunshot. Victor forced a laugh. "Lucas, this is not the time." I walked forward. Every guard behind me spread out with silent control, one at each hallway. 2 near the stairs, 2 near the back exit. Marcus stayed at my right shoulder. Daniel stayed at my left. Victor's eyes moved around the room, counting exits the way he had counted guests at my father's funeral. This time there were none. "What is this?" Victor snapped. "Who let these men into my house?" I looked at him. "Your house?" His jaw tightened. I stepped closer, slow enough for everyone to hear my shoes against the marble. "You threw me out of my father's funeral," I said. "You locked the gates. You packed my life into a bag. You told me I was nothing without him." Victor's face darkened. "You are embarrassing yourself." "No," I said. "You did that when you forged a dead man's name." Gasps moved through the room. Helena spoke fast. "This is madness. He is unstable." Everyone saw what happened at the funeral. I turned to her. "You mean the funeral where you performed grief in front of guests, then wore my dead mother's necklace 3 days later?" Her hand flew to the diamonds at her throat. Emily whispered, "Lucas." I looked at her, and for one painful second I remembered the woman I thought she was. Then I remembered the agreement she signed. I looked away. Victor slammed his glass onto a table. "Security, remove him!" Nobody moved. Victor shouted louder. "I said remove him!" One of his guards looked at Marcus. Marcus did not even blink. Daniel stepped forward and held up a legal document. "By emergency court order," Daniel said, "this estate is now under secured control of the Vale Protection Trust until the fraud investigation is complete." The room exploded with whispers. Victor's face turned red. "Fraud investigation?" Clara Bennett entered through the front doors with 2 court officers behind her. She looked sharp, calm, and ready to cut. "Yes, Mr. Vale," she said. "Fraud investigation?" Victor pointed at her. "Who are you?" Clara smiled. "The attorney your brother actually trusted. That hit him." I saw it. For the first time, Victor looked afraid. Clara walked to the center of the room and opened her file. "This mansion, all internal records, private safes and estate offices are now frozen. No one removes documents. No one leaves with jewelry, devices, contracts, or company files until cleared." Helena stepped back. "You cannot do this," Marcus spoke quietly. "We already are." 2 guards moved toward the staircases. 2 more sealed the study. Another team entered the hallway that led to the private office. Victor stepped toward me. "You think this makes you powerful?" I looked at him. "No," I said. "This makes me patient." His lips shook with anger. "You are still a boy," he hissed. I leaned close enough for only him to hear. "And you are still the man who needed a fake will to sit in my father's chair." His face twisted. For one second, I thought he would hit me. I almost wanted him to. Marcus stepped forward and Victor stopped. Emily suddenly pushed through the crowd. "Lucas, please," she said. "Can we talk?" I looked at her hand as it reached for my sleeve. Last time she let go of me in this room. This time I stepped back before she could touch me. Her eyes filled with tears. "I made mistakes," she whispered. I nodded slowly. "No, Emily, you made choices." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Clara's voice cut through the room. "I will now present preliminary evidence showing that the will used to remove Lucas Vale from inheritance was created under illegal circumstances." Victor turned sharp. "No, not here." Clara looked at him. "You chose a public room for the lie. We can use the same room for the truth." The investors started whispering louder. One man near the back said, "Victor, what is going on?" Victor's mask cracked. "Everyone stay calm," he said. "This is a family issue." I laughed once. The whole room turned to me. "A family issue?" I asked. "You had me thrown into the rain in front of strangers. You sent men after me. You tried to sell my father's company. You dragged my name through mud. I took one step closer, so no, Uncle Victor. This is not a family issue anymore." Marcus gave a small nod. The guards moved. The mansion doors closed behind the guests. A loud lock echoed through the hall. Victor looked around, trapped inside the empire he stole, and I said the words I had carried in my chest since the night I was thrown out. "You stole my father's fortune." I looked at Helena. "You stole my mother's memory." Then I looked at Emily. "And you stole the last piece of trust I had left." My voice dropped. "Now watch what happens when the man you buried comes back with proof." The room went so quiet I could hear the rainwater dripping from the coats near the door. Victor looked at the closed mansion doors like he still believed they would open for him. They did not. My guards stood at every exit with calm faces and folded hands. They did not need to threaten anyone. Their silence was enough. Clara walked to the center of the great hall and placed her file on the long table where Victor had been serving champagne moments earlier. Mr. Victor Vale, she said, you presented a will claiming Edward Vale removed his son Lucas from inheritance. Victor lifted his chin. Because Edward did remove him, I watched his face, still proud, still acting, still trying to control the room. Clara opened the first page. This document says Edward Vale signed the will at 9:20 p.m. on April 14. Victor's jaw moved. Correct, Clara looked around the room, at 9:20 p.m. On April 14th, Edward Vale was under hospital care, heavily medicated and unable to sign legal documents. A wave of whispers passed through the guests. Victor snapped. That is not true. Clara raised another paper. Hospital record. Victor's eyes flickered. Just for 1 second, but I saw it, Clara continued. The attending nurse also confirmed Edward could not hold a pen that night. Helena stepped forward. This is private medical information. You have no right to. I have every right, Clara cut in. Edward gave me that right before he died. Helena's mouth closed. Victor looked at me with hate burning in his eyes. You planned this? I met his stare. No, my father did. That sentence hit him harder than I expected. His face changed, like my dead father had stepped into the room and pulled the chair out from under him. Clara pressed a small recorder. Static filled the hall. Then my father's voice came through the speaker. Weak, tired, but still his. If anything happens to me, protect my son. Victor will move fast, Helena will help him, and Lucas must not trust the will they show him. A woman in the crowd gasped. Someone whispered, Edward said that. My throat tightened. Hearing my father's voice in that room almost brought me to my knees. I wanted to close my eyes and pretend he was upstairs in his study, calling my name, but I stayed standing. Victor's lips parted. No sound came out. Helena's hand moved to my mother's necklace again. I looked at the diamonds around her throat and felt a deep, cold anger. Clara turned another page. Now we move to estate theft. Several items were removed from Edward Vale's private safe after his death. Helena spoke too fast. Those items belonged to the family. I looked at her. That necklace belonged to my mother. The whole room turned to her. Her face went white. I took one slow step toward her. My father kept it locked away for 12 years, I said. He never let anyone touch it. Not because it was expensive, because it was hers. Helena swallowed. Lucas, I was only honoring. Do not say that word, I said. My voice was low, but it carried. Do not wear my mother's diamonds and call it honor. For the first time, Helena looked ashamed, but shame came too late. Marcus gave a small hand signal. One female guard stepped toward Helena. Ma'am, the necklace is part of the frozen estate. Please remove it. Helena looked at Victor. Victor did not help her. That told everyone what kind of man he was. With shaking hands, Helena unclasped the necklace and placed it on the table. The diamonds made a soft sound against the wood. It sounded like a memory being returned. Then Clara turned to the next document. My heart tightened because I knew what was coming. Emily must have known too. She took one step back. Clara looked at her. Emily Carter. Emily's face lost all color. No, she whispered. I looked at her. She did not look at me. Clara raised the paper. This is a private agreement signed by Emily Carter and Victor Vale 2 weeks before Edward Vale's death. The room changed. Not loudly, not all at once, but I felt it. The air became sharp. Victor snapped. That document is confidential. Clara smiled coldly. Fraud usually is. Emily covered her mouth. Clara read aloud. Emily Carter agrees to provide personal statements supporting the claim that Lucas Vale is emotionally unstable and unfit to manage the family estate. My chest hurt, even though I already knew. Hearing it in that room made it real in a new way. Clara continued in return. Emily Carter would receive 5% ownership in a private holding company connected to Victor Vale. People started whispering. Someone said, she sold him out. Another voice said, at his father's funeral. Emily finally looked at me. Tears ran down her face now. Lucas, she said. I can explain. I stared at her for a long moment. This was the woman I had planned to marry. The woman who knew how I took my coffee. The woman who had worn my ring. The woman who held my hand beside my father's coffin while knowing she had already sold me. I asked the only question left in me. Was any of it real? Emily cried harder. Yes. I shook my head. Do not lie to me again. Not in this room. She stepped closer. I was scared. Victor told me you would lose everything anyway. He said if I stayed with you, I would be dragged down too. So you pushed me first? I asked. Her face twisted. I did not think they would throw you out like that. I laughed once, but there was no joy in it. You signed a paper calling me unstable. What did you think they would do? Give me a hug? She flinched. Victor suddenly shouted, Enough. All of you are listening to a bitter boy and a hired lawyer. He grabbed the file from the table and threw papers into the air. For 1 second, chaos broke loose. Guests stepped back. Helena screamed. Emily cried out. Victor moved toward Clara, his hand raised like he wanted to strike her. Marcus crossed the room so fast I barely saw him move. He caught Victor's wrist, hard. Victor froze. Marcus leaned close and spoke softly, but everyone heard him. "Touch her, and you leave this house in handcuffs before the court officers finish reading your charges." Victor tried to pull free. He could not. His face turned red. "You work for me," Victor spat. Marcus's eyes went cold. "I never worked for you." Daniel picked up the scattered papers and placed them back on the table. Clara did not look afraid. She looked ready. "Thank you," she said, then continued like Victor had only spilled water. That made him look smaller than anything I could have said. Clara looked at the court officers. "We are requesting immediate protection of the estate records, removal of Victor Vale from property control, and detention for questioning regarding document fraud, intimidation, and attempted unlawful transfer of assets." One officer stepped toward Victor. Victor looked around the room at the guests, at the investors, at Helena, at Emily, at me. For the first time in my life, my uncle had no speech prepared, no smile, no fake grief, no power, just fear. "This is my brother's house," he said weakly. I stepped close. "No," I said. "It was my father's house." I looked up at the staircase, the chandelier, the walls filled with family portraits. "Now it belongs to the truth." The officers took Victor by the arms. He fought for 1 second, then stopped when he saw every camera pointed at him. That was the worst punishment for a man like Victor. Not the witnesses. As they led him toward the door, he turned his head and hissed at me. "You think this is over?" I looked at him. "No," I said. "I think this is the first honest thing that has happened in this house since my father died." They took him out. Helena sank into a chair like her bones had turned to dust. Emily stood alone near the broken glass from her fallen drink. I thought I would feel victory. I thought I would feel fire, but all I felt was a heavy emptiness. Emily walked toward me slowly. "Lucas," she whispered, "please, I know I don't deserve anything, but I loved you." I looked at her engagement ring on her finger, my ring, the one I had given her under the oak tree behind the mansion. "Take it off," I said. Her hand covered it. "Please don't do this here." I looked around the room. "You betrayed me here." Her lips shook. Slowly, she pulled off the ring and placed it in my palm. It felt colder than I remembered. She whispered, "What happens to me now?" I closed my fist around the ring. "That is the first thing tonight that is not my problem." Her tears fell harder, but I walked past her, not because it did not hurt, because it hurt too much to stay. I entered my father's study for the first time since his death. The room was dark. His chair waited behind the desk. For years I had wanted to sit in it. Now I was afraid to touch it. On the desk was a sealed envelope Clara had placed there before the operation started. My name was written on it. Another letter from my father. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside were only 2 lines. "Lucas, when the mansion is yours again, do not sit in my chair until you know what kind of man you want to be. Power reveals the heart before it protects it." I stared at the chair. Behind me I heard Emily crying in the hall. Victor was gone. Helena was broken. The mansion was secured. But my father's warning cut deeper than victory, because now I had everything back, and I had to decide what revenge would turn me into. I stood inside my father's study with his final letter shaking in my hand. The mansion was mine again. Victor was gone. Helena was broken. Emily was crying in the hall. But I did not feel like a winner. I felt like a man standing in the ashes of a house that had burned from the inside. My father's chair waited behind the desk, dark leather, high back. The same chair he had sat in when I was a boy and came running into his office, with scraped knees, broken toys, and childish problems that felt like the end of the world. He always made time for me, even when he was busy, even when phones were ringing, even when powerful men were waiting outside his door. He would look at me and say, "Come here, son. Tell me what happened." Now the chair was empty, and I hated it. Marcus stepped into the doorway, but he did not enter fully. "Sir," he said quietly, "the estate is secured." I folded the letter. "Do not call me sir right now." Marcus paused. Then he nodded. "Lucas." That small change almost broke me. I looked at the chair again. "Did he suffer?" Marcus did not answer right away. That told me enough. I turned to him. "Marcus, tell me the truth. Your father was in pain, but he was not afraid." I swallowed hard. "How do you know?" "Because he was still planning how to protect you." My eyes burned. I wanted to hate my father for not telling me sooner. I wanted to ask why he let Emily close to me if he suspected her. I wanted to ask why he left me a war instead of a warning, but deep down I knew. If he had warned me, I would have defended them. I would have said Victor was family. I would have said Helena cared. I would have said Emily loved me. I was too blind to believe the truth until it threw me into the rain. A court officer came to the door. "Mr. Vale. Victor Vale has been taken in for questioning. His personal devices were seized. We also found packed bags in the east bedroom." Marcus looked at me. "He planned to leave tonight." I laughed once under my breath. Victor had built a throne out of lies and already packed a way out. What about Helena? I asked. She is still in the hall, Marcus said. She refuses to leave without speaking to you. I closed my eyes for a moment. Part of me wanted to say no. Part of me wanted to let her sit there until morning with no diamonds, no power, and no audience. But my father's words stayed in my head. Power reveals the heart before it protects it. I opened my eyes. Bring her in. Marcus gave a short nod. A minute later, Helena stepped into the study. Without my mother's necklace, she looked smaller, older, less untouchable. Her black dress was perfect, but her face was not. Her makeup had cracked near her eyes. For once, she looked like a real person instead of a painting hanging in a rich house. Lucas, she said. I did not answer. She looked at the desk, then at the chair, then back at me. Your father would not want this family destroyed. That almost made me smile. Funny, I said. You only talk about family when you are losing. Her lips tightened. I made mistakes. No, I said. You made deals. She looked down. I stepped closer. You stood beside my father's coffin and helped them call me unstable. You watched them throw me out. You wore my mother's necklace like you had earned her place. Her voice shook. I was scared. Everyone kept saying that. Emily was scared. Helena was scared. Victor was scared of losing power. And somehow their fear had become my punishment. I looked at her and said I was scared too. She finally looked at me. I was scared when my father died. I was scared when the only woman I trusted let go of my hand. I was scared when I had nowhere to go and men followed me in the rain. My voice stayed calm, but my chest hurt. But I did not steal from a dead man. Helena covered her mouth. For a second I saw shame in her eyes. Real shame. But shame was not justice. You will leave this house tonight, I said. Your personal items will be checked. Anything that belonged to my father, my mother, or the estate stays here. Her face twisted. Where will I go? I looked at her the way she had looked at me outside the gate. That is painful for all of us, I said. She flinched because she recognized her own words. Marcus stepped aside. Helena walked out without another sound. Then Emily appeared in the doorway. I had known she would come. Maybe I had been waiting for it. She stood there with red eyes, no ring, and no pride left on her face. Can I talk to you? She whispered. Marcus looked at me, silently asking if I wanted him to remove her. I shook my head. It is fine. Marcus left us alone, but I knew he stayed close. Emily stepped into the room slowly. This used to scare me, she said, looking around the study. Your father's office. I said nothing. He always looked at me like he knew something. He did, I said. She looked at me then, and fresh tears filled her eyes. Lucas, I know you hate me. I looked at her face, the face I had loved, the face I'd trusted, the face that had watched me get dragged through this mansion like a criminal. I wish I did, I said. That hurt her more than anger would have. She took one step closer. I made the worst mistake of my life. No, I said. A mistake is forgetting a birthday. A mistake is saying the wrong thing when you are angry. You signed my life away for 5%. Her mouth trembled. Victor said you would lose anyway. And that made it easier? No, she shook her head fast. No, I hated myself for it, but not enough to stop. She had no answer. I opened my palm. Her engagement ring sat there, small, bright, useless. I held it out. Her eyes widened. You want me to take it back? No, I said. I want you to see it one last time. She stared at the ring like it was a dead thing. I bought this because I thought love meant choosing someone even when life got hard, I said. You taught me love means nothing when greed is stronger than loyalty. She cried silently. I walked to the desk, opened the drawer, and placed the ring inside. Then I closed it, but it felt final. Emily whispered, Is there any chance you can forgive me? I looked at her for a long time. That was the question, wasn't it? The one viewers would argue about, the one my heart could not answer easily. I thought about the rain, the gate, her hand leaving mine, her message telling me to disappear. Then I thought about my father. Never let betrayal take your soul. I will forgive you one day, I said. Her breath caught. But not because you deserve to come back. Her face fell. I will forgive you because I deserve peace. She covered her mouth and sobbed. I walked past her toward the door. Lucas, she cried. I stopped, but I did not turn. I really did love you. I closed my eyes. Maybe that was true. Maybe part of her had loved me. But a love that sells you when life gets hard is not love you can build a future on. I opened my eyes. Then you should have protected what you loved. I walked out. An hour later, the mansion was quiet. Victor's guests were gone. The police cars had left. Helena had been escorted out with 2 suitcases and nothing that belonged to my family. Emily stood outside the front gate under the light rain. No umbrella, no driver, no one holding her hand. For a moment, the world looked exactly like the night I was thrown out. Only this time I was inside. Marcus stood beside me near the window. She is still there, he said. I know. Do you want her removed? I watched Emily wipe rain from her face. My chest tightened, but I did not move. No, as he said, let her leave on her own. Marcus nodded. Your father would be proud of you. I looked at him. Would he? Yes, Marcus said. Not because you won, because you stopped before revenge owned you. I turned back toward the study. The chair was still there, waiting. This time I walked to it. I placed my father's final letter on the desk. Then I sat down, not like a king, not like a man hungry for power, like a son carrying a name he finally understood. On the desk was my father's old recorder. Clara had left it there with the evidence. I pressed play one more time. My father's voice filled the room. Lucas, if you are hearing this after the storm, remember this. Money can return, a house can return, even a name can be cleaned. But if betrayal makes you cruel, then they have taken more than your fortune. I lowered my head. Tears finally came, not loud, not dramatic. Just for my father, for the man I used to be, for the family I thought I had, and for the part of me that had died outside those gates. When I looked up, the rain had slowed. Emily was gone, the gate was closed, and the mansion was silent. I touched my father's ring and whispered, I lost the people who wore my family name like a mask. Then I looked around the study, at the walls, the books, the old photos, and the empty places grief had left behind. But I found the man my father was trying to raise. For the first time since his death, I did not feel buried, I felt alive. 3 months after the mansion was seized, I stood in front of Vale Holdings for the first time as its rightful owner. The building looked the same from outside, tall glass walls, silver letters, clean floors, expensive suits walking through the front doors. But I was not the same man who used to enter this place behind my father. Back then I walked with his shadow over me. Now I walked with his name inside me. Marcus stood beside the car. Ready? I looked up at the building. No, I said. But I've learned ready is not always a feeling. Marcus almost smiled. Your father said something like that once. I touched the ring on my finger. Of course he did. The front doors opened before I reached them. Employees stood in the lobby waiting. Some looked ashamed. Some looked nervous. Some looked curious. They had all heard the story by now. Victor's arrest, Helena's frozen accounts, Emily's public fall, the fake will, the mansion, the guards, the truth. But stories always become smaller when people repeat them. They forget the pain. They remember only the dramatic parts. They remembered that my guards seized the mansion. They did not remember how cold the rain felt when I was thrown outside. They remembered Victor being taken away. They did not remember me holding my father's letter with shaking hands. They remembered Emily crying. They did not remember how it felt to ask the woman I loved if any of it was real. I walked into the lobby. Everyone became quiet. A man from finance stepped forward. His name was Aaron Blake. He used to laugh at Victor's jokes louder than anyone. Mr. Vale, he said. Welcome back. I looked at him. Welcome back. As if I had been on vacation. I nodded once. Thank you. He swallowed. The board is waiting upstairs. Let them wait. 2 minutes, I said. His face changed. Sir? I looked around the lobby at the employees. My father had known many of them by name. He knew whose child had surgery, whose mother was sick, whose wife had passed away. He believed a company was not built from contracts. It was built from people who trusted the person at the top. Victor never understood that. Maybe I had not understood it either. I stepped toward the center of the lobby. I know many of you were told things about me, I said. No one moved. You were told I was unstable, greedy, weak, unfit. Maybe some of you believed it. A few people looked down. I am not here to punish people for being afraid, I said. Fear makes people quiet. I know that better than most. My voice stayed calm, but my chest was tight. But from today forward, silence will not protect corruption in this company. The room grew heavier. If you helped Victor steal, hide records, or hurt innocent people, Clara Bennett already has your name. Faces went pale. But if you were scared, pressured, or lied to, then you still have a chance to stand on the right side. I let the words sit. My father built this place with discipline. I will rebuild it with truth. For the first time, someone clapped. It was not loud, just one person, then another, then the whole lobby. I did not smile, not because I was ungrateful, because applause was easy, loyalty was harder. Upstairs, the boardroom was full. Old men in dark suits sat around the long table. They had served my father, then bowed to Victor the moment they thought I was weak. I entered without rushing. Marcus stayed near the door. Clara sat to my right. Aaron stood near the wall, sweating. The chairman of the board, Harold Pierce, cleared his throat. Lucas, he said, trying to sound warm, we are all pleased this painful family matter is being resolved. I sat at the head of the table, my father's seat. Then I looked at him. This was not a family matter, I said. It was corporate fraud. Harold blinked. Clara opened a folder. I continued. Anyone who helped Victor sign illegal asset transfers will be removed. Anyone who looked away while he used company money for personal escape plans will be investigated. One board member shifted. This could damage the company's image. I looked at him. No, hiding it would. He had no answer. That was the first meeting where I did not try to sound like my father. I sounded like myself. After 2 hours, 3 board members resigned before we could remove them. 2 executives agreed to cooperate. One man cried quietly when Clara showed him proof of what Victor had made him sign. By noon, the company started changing. By evening, the world knew. But the last test came when I returned to the mansion. Emily was waiting outside the gate. For a moment, I thought my eyes were lying. She wore a simple coat, no expensive dress, no jewelry, no proud smile. Just Emily. Marcus looked at me. You don't have to speak to her. I know. But I stepped out of the car. The gate stayed between us. That mattered. She held an envelope in both hands. I'm not here to beg, she said. I stayed silent. I wrote something, she continued. Not for the court, not for the media, for you. I looked at the envelope. Another paper with your signature on it. Her face tightened with pain. I deserved that, she whispered. Yes, I said, you did. She pushed the envelope through the bars. I did not take it. Her eyes filled with tears, but she did not cry loudly this time. I told the investigators everything, she said. Every call, every meeting, every lie Victor made me repeat. Good. I also gave back the money. That does not clean what happened. I know the old me would have wanted to ask why. Why betray me? Why sell me? Why hold my hand at the funeral? But the new me understood something painful. Some answers do not heal you. They only reopen the wound. Emily looked at me through the gate. I wanted to be rich enough that no one could ever leave me powerless, she said. So I became the kind of person who leaves others powerless first. For once, that sounded honest. I looked at her for a long time. Then I took the envelope. Thank you for telling the truth, I said. Her lips trembled. Can we ever talk again? I looked at the mansion behind me, then at the gate between us. No, I said softly. Her face broke. But I did not look away. Forgiveness does not mean access, Emily. She closed her eyes as tears fell. I turned to leave. Lucas, she called. I stopped. I hope you become everything your father believed you could be. I looked back once. I hope you become someone you can live with. Then I walked inside. That night, I sat in my father's study and opened Emily's letter. It was short. She did not make excuses. She did not ask for another chance. She wrote only what she should have said when it mattered. I chose fear over love. I chose money over loyalty. I chose the people who used me over the person who trusted me. I am sorry I became part of the night that broke you. I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. Not with my father's letters, not with my mother's things, in a separate drawer. Some memories deserve a place, but not a throne. A week later, I opened a new foundation in my father's name. Not for rich people, not for headlines. For sons and daughters cheated out of their homes by greedy relatives. For families destroyed by forged papers. For people who had no Marcus. No Clara, no hidden trust, and no private guards waiting in the dark. At the opening, reporters asked me, Mr. Vale, do you feel revenge is complete now? I looked at the cameras. For a moment, I thought about Victor. He was awaiting trial. Helena had moved into a small apartment outside the city. Emily had vanished from every social circle she once worshipped. The mansion was quiet again. The company was clean again. My father's name was safe again. But revenge? No, that was not the word anymore. I looked into the camera and said, revenge gave me the door back. Justice gave me the keys. But peace came when I stopped standing outside my own life. That clip went viral. People called me cold. People called me strong. People called me cruel for not taking Emily back. But I knew the truth. I was not cruel. I was free. That evening, I walked through the mansion garden alone. The oak tree behind the house moved softly in the wind. It was the same tree where I had once asked Emily to marry me. For a second the pain returned, then it passed, not fully. Maybe pain like that never fully leaves. Maybe it just learns to sit quietly. I looked up at the balcony where my father used to stand. For the first time I did not imagine him watching me with worry. I imagined him smiling. I touched his ring and whispered, "They stole your fortune." "Dad." The wind moved through the trees, but they could not steal your name. Then I walked back inside the mansion. Not as the boy they threw into the rain, not as the man who came back with guards, but as the man who finally understood the difference between winning a house and coming home.